All right, so we were talking about question of the day number 4 as part of Unit 14 and getting introduced to digital painting, which is just the control of every pixel towards your own two-dimensional image making. And I want to go to just finish these up, because you really have to kind of think through it from all points of view. So what are the positives and the negatives of AI use professionally in any kind of creative job, right? So there's also the potential for misinformation. We know about hallucinations. We know that AI is programmed to want to give you something that makes you keep using it. That's inherent in its initial programming. And then all the safety protocols are kind of put on after it. So if you ask it for like child pornography, it wants to give that to you, and then you have to have like layers of things on top of it that keep that, but those can be hacked. Those can be kind of worked around. So it's risky, especially for any public-facing content, right? So that leads to the ethical and legal concerns, plagiarism, copyright infringement, bias and stereotyping, authorship and originality. This goes right to the heart of what question of the day 4 is about, and how that impacts, just regular digital media and how people see it, like whether they trust it or not, whether they think it's authentic. And I did notice in presentations this semester, not just you guys, across the board, more and more each semester, it's less likely for students to get good information about what they share, because citing and getting kind of clear image information is something that's less and less, popular is the wrong word. It's a discipline of understanding where images come from that has become eroded in our public consciousness, right? That we think there's just an ether where images come from, and we don't drill down to figure out like what is the actual human component, when was it made, how was it made, that kind of thing. And AI definitely muddies those waters for sure. So all of these kind of downsides, right? But then what are the upsides? So let's look at some local examples. So a few years ago, San Antonio water system stopped using human freelancers and graphic designers and illustrators for their public-facing campaigns. We're lucky in San Antonio, we have a public utility for water, but they still have to promote. They're like public service campaigns, right? Like when not to water your lawn, that kind of stuff. So they had this campaign that they launched, and it won a bunch of awards, marketing awards. It was called the Wrangle Your Water Use Awards. This was 3 years ago. And now that it's 3 years on, let's see what's happened with that campaign. Because I definitely noticed it when it came out. This is what they had before. So this is 4 years ago. I'll call before the AI times. You have a link to this artist, a local illustrator and digital designer. And so this is what their first campaign was with the AI. And I thought it was a really good campaign. I suspected it was AI, but I really liked kind of the 50s retro style to it. And you guys may have recognized this. There are billboards around, there are buses, the cowgirl, right? So I suspected it was AI because of this water and because of the repetitive shading and the hose and how everything has the exact same level of detail. There isn't any intentional focal point. There are some like distinctive things like the Red Runner silhouette on the belt buckle, like certain customizations were made to it. But in terms of just the overall look, it looked very AI. But it was effective. It was good branding because it was specific. So even for AI, it had, kind of a clear point of view, which made sense. It was this point of view, from their previous art campaigns. They wanted kind of a flat graphic, vintage, but not horror poster this time. They wanted it to be more cowboyish, right? So the Wrangle Your Water Use. And they did not design the typefaces with AI. This is before AI was any good at doing typefaces. So that saved them a ton of money, and they got reinforced for it, right? And this is a public utility. This is something they don't have a huge budget anyway. So any money they save on not hiring artists, they put towards, public programs to get people more efficient shower faucets, to fix leaks, things like that. So, money is a real thing. It's not a reason to hate companies just because they're saving money. So what happened was the next one looked like this, and they just weren't so successful. Because this is what really worries me about its use and its early adoption for marketing campaigns, it's not at all consistent, right? So if you like how it did something once, you're not going to get consistent variations on it. And so they started for about 2 years looking really generic. Like the same color palette, but like the imagery wasn't as effective. And then it greatly limited their creative direction because they did everything they could to remind you of the original campaign. And there were like little glitches that would happen. So they did the cow guy version, and they used the exact same like asset of the hose and the belt and everything, but they couldn't get rid of this little blade of grass in the cow guy's face because they don't have anyone that knows how to use Photoshop or knows how to exactly. So the real worry is kind of the skill, the process knowledge that's lost, right? And so the after AI times, they are still doing this campaign, 3 to 4 years later, and they'll just reuse the assets, and they'll do like little vignettes based on it, and they actually had to pay more for an outside of LA company to use those original AI assets and to make all these derivatives. Does that make sense? So at first they saved money, got the original campaign, but then to keep the campaign going, which they always do, they ended up having to hire someone that was more expensive and not local, that was more kind of corporate, that could take those AI assets and animate them and turn them into, all these different versions, which are all less successful than the one thing they got that they liked. And it cost them a lot more in their budget than when they used to hire a single creative from San Antonio. But you can't hire a single creative to do that work because that's menial, terrible digital work, right? So that's what you order campaigns for. So you can look at some of these links. You can see all of the different things that they created. But it's interesting to know. You have to be a long-term thinker to understand the impact of AI for your marketing. And so they actually lost more money than they saved, right? Which is bad for a public utility because that means less money going towards the public good. So this is a really nice video about kind of the AI bubble in imagery and what it might lead to and what causes it. Is it good and profitable? And that's something you'll have to answer. So I thought this was really interesting. So when I was in grad school, I started wearing Skechers. This was in the late 90s. And I liked shoes that were comfortable but looked like bowling shoes. And that's what Skechers used to be, right? I don't like Skechers anymore, but this is something that would make me really upset with Skechers if I did still watch them or look at them. So Skechers' recent campaign for a new shoe called the Uno is just a nationwide, probably international marketing campaign just using AI imagery that is completely inconsistent. So this is one example. This is the first one I saw. I saw it in a magazine in the library. And then there are they did one in Vogue, which was bad AI. They do lots of Subway ones. Some are photographic. A lot are digitally painted. This one's clearly based on, what's that actress's name? Sydney Sweeney. Yep, that's right. And this is all for the same shoe, the same campaign. Like no consistency between them at all. So this is a nice little summary of this. And this is kind of the public perception these things are getting.
The shoe company, they're completely broke. They have this new shoe called the Uno. Maybe it's an old shoe. I don't know. But they have all these new ads that I have seen on the Los Angeles public transit system at all the train stations. There's all these ads. And guys, they can't afford, probably put in there with Photoshop. But like, what's going on with her? Did no one check this? Why is the underside of her hat a different color back there than it is in the front? What's causing these colors on her face? Why does the brim of the hat have two seams? You see that? We got 1 and 2. What is that about? This one's a little better, but like you can't really bend your knees like that and have your feet facing this direction. And what is going on with this hand over here? I mean, like, yeah, I technically could bend, I could bend my fingers like that. It's just not, it's not a natural or comfortable position. Oh, guys, they're out of money. They don't have any money. And if they can't afford to have anyone double check the art, I mean, art in quotes, you know, it's generated, but like if no one's double checking this, is anyone checking the shoes? Are the shoes any good? Look at this tattoo. That is objectively hilarious. It's so bad. And look at this ear. What happened to your ear, man? But my favorite, right here, look at how the hair becomes a tattoo. The strand of hair comes down to her shoulder, and then it doesn't know what it's doing. It just becomes part of her arm. If the ear wasn't bad enough, look at these lips. What's going on with your lips? And what is that tattoo above your eyebrow? It looks like you got a...
So these are national campaigns, and illustrators would get paid around $9,000, you know, to work on a campaign like this. So they're saving that, but they're making, you know, pretty clearly inferior work because of it. And maybe that's fine. Maybe it all washes out. But the whole part of marketing is to get people excited about your projects, right? And then Marvel had the same problem with their motion graphics for their TV show Secret Invasion. But I actually thought this was pretty interesting. So to me, this was genius metamedia marketing, because the whole show was about, you know, a foreign threat, you know, a psychological existential threat. And so they channeled that with the early AI there. But it really upset people. And is all, you know, all publicity, good publicity. So remember, way back at the beginning of the semester, right? Now that we're winding it up, it's always this choice over convenience or quality. It's in your own work, it's in your own budgets, it's in your own ambitions, it's in your short-term planning, your long-term planning for yourself. We're trying to follow our interest, gather our skills to create the person we want to be, right? And it's also a fight from apathy over engagement. And what I see happening is that the AI slop is sapping energy from looking at images, right? And it's encouraging apathy, which does not lead to good work product, right? Does not lead to good creative decisions. So you need to always be focused on what engages you, and that has to do with your workflow as well, whether it's for assignment 7, for your final project, and how you can find a way to use the new technologies, whatever they may be, not in an apathetic and cynical way, but in a productive, you know, informed and engaged way. So you have the power, right? And then this is a great article if you are curious, and if you ever get in this situation, which a lot of my friends have been in, and they've shared this with me, how do you kind of make that argument? If you're a creative and you're trying to help your company make better decisions so they don't get stuck in where Skechers is or where Anthropology is, that used AI for all their Christmas bags last year and got a big backlash and all that, right? All right. And now with Sora,
considering that OpenAI is now the most
with Sora 2 coming out, it's actually a big financial bubble as well. So this video talks about that. All right. So there's a lot in question of the day 4. It's a big question, but you can approach it from several different angles, right? How does this use of technology affect how you think digital media is viewed and valued? Because that means, what do you have the potential to get paid for? Yeah, Eden.
Some thoughts on it. Like, I used to really like it.
Sure.
I was more in the pro AI camp because I didn't like all the arguments about
Sure.
copyright infringement and stuff like that. But God, have I ever? I do not think.
Yeah, I don't think many people have thought about it deeply, right? And you have to kind of use it and understand, because there are things that are good about it.
It's just like I've soured on it just from the
Sure.
abundance on the internet.
Sure.
On how you're forced to use it on Google and stuff like that. Like, it's annoying.
It is.
Annoying,
It is.
And it doesn't even look interesting anymore. It's all the same. So,
Yeah, it was actually more interesting when they had a more limited data set, which was like 2 years ago. Yep.
that's all it works.
So our next project is your most creatively freeing project, right? All I'm giving you is the option of 2